Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me. It's always such a thrill to be together with other ladies who just want to hear words of Emun and Bitachon, because that's just what I want to be able to say. And I know that I come away after having spoken about Emun and Bitachon for, I don't know, half an hour or so. I feel better. So I hope it helps somebody else as well. And thank you for being here. I appreciate every single one of you who come week after week and join this space. Okay, so I feel it's a chesed to me, and I I firmly believe, as it says, thank you, Hannah, thank you so much. I firmly believe what the Rav Moshe Cordovero wrote in Talmud Devorah, that all of our souls are connected, and there's a piece of everybody's soul in our soul, and there's a piece of us inside the soul of every other person, and so when we strengthen ourselves in Emun and Bitachon, we are doing something to strengthen the faith and trust of all Klal Yisrael in some way. We're doing it in some way. And so it's not only for ourselves, but it's the chelik of everybody else that exists within us. And that way we can have some kind of influence for Ezras Hashem Yisbarach. So Tevas Noach, we're all Jews. That's right. That's what it is. We're all Yidden. We all have a Jewish neshama, and the Jewish neshamas are all one in some very mysterious way. The Kodesh Baruch Hu has us all joined together, and we're all one with the Kodesh Baruch Hu and with the Torah. So here's the Torah. So Reb Asher, in his time, he says that different researchers, American researchers, English, French researchers, have all decided that the Teva of Noach exists still today. In fact, when I read this, I went to go and see what is presently being said about it. And apparently there's a mountain in Turkey, not far from Har Ararat, where a pilot was flying over. Hi, great to see you on. A pilot was flying over these mountains, this mountain range, and he saw a very strange formation that looks the shape of a big boat, approximately the same dimensions as that which would be of the Teva of Noah's Ark. And apparently, it really could be that this is ancient remains of an ark. Okay, as Reb Asher says, it doesn't interest the archaeologists very much. If they have artifacts that came from the ark, they're just going to put it on show next to African artifacts and Indian artifacts. It doesn't mean anything to them. And to us who have the Torah, where it's all written, it doesn't actually mean anything to us either, because just because something is corroborated by science or not, that doesn't move us, because we have a Heilige Torah which tells us the truth. The Lubavitcher Rebbe Zitzal once asked one of his Talmidim, he said, how do we know the world was created? So, something to think. I think it was actually Rabbi Jacobson, maybe, asked the question. And he said, how do we know? And the Rebbe answered, because it says in the Torah, Bereshis bara Elokim, it's a Shemayim ba'aretz. That's how we know the world was created. Otherwise, we might actually, maybe we're just fantasizing, maybe it's just a figment of our imagination, as some philosophers said. But since it says Bereshis bara Elokim es hashamayim ba'aretz, Hashem created the beginning. In the beginning, Hashem created the heavens and the earth. So we know the world was created, and there is a heavens and there is an earth, and there is two dimensions. There's a heaven, there's an earth, and we live down here. And we know there was a Mabul because it says in the Torah, it says in Parshas Noach. But what is relevant for us, says Rav Asher, is that the Tevas Noach, the concept of the ark, exists still today. And each one of us creates for ourselves a Tevas Noach. Whatever that Tevas Noach is. Rav Asher says that an insulated space, our homes, to keep out whatever's going on the outside. The home is supposed to be a sanctuary. The home is supposed to be a safe space. The home is supposed to be a holy, pure environment. So spiritually, we want to insulate our homes as much as we can, and that's the aspect of the Teva. But additionally, I think, so I'm I'm here trying to clearly separate between what I read in the words of Russia and then my take on it, is that there's so much going on out there. There is it's not just an information explosion, but there's an information invasion going on. And there's so much free stuff. There's so much out there. It's so hard to choose what you're going to listen to and what you're not going to listen to, who you're going to take your words from. We need to become much more selective, and use a lot more of our intuition in deciding, is this right for me? Is this something that builds me? Is this something that connects me to a Kodesh Baruch? Is this something that helps me to feel more confident in my life, more emunah b'tachon, more Jewish? Or is this something that makes me feel more threatened in my life? Does it makes me feel less safe? Does it makes me feel that the world is a Hefgewelt? It's very important that we find voices that validate us, and that we take the opportunity to listen to those things that give us a sense of being heard and understood and seen in a world where maybe we haven't been feeling understood and seen and heard. And we need to really be discriminatory. We need to discriminate, use our faculties to choose. When I say to discriminate, meaning to really think into something and make decisions for ourselves about what we're going to let in. And that's just, on a technical level about reading, writing, what we allow ourselves to watch and hear and read, and in all those different ways. But even in another way, our environment, what we surround ourselves with, is so important. I remember one particular client from years back who we were working together for a long period of time, and every week we had to sort of begin again in some very fundamental areas. Her sense of confidence, a sense of self-esteem, a sense of valuing herself, were not strong. And even though she was working on it, she seemed to just be filled with a lot of self-doubt and self-questioning. And after a certain amount of time, it became clear that there was a very negative, aggressive, and antagonistic family member that she was speaking to every week, who would tear her down and ridicule her and make her feel horrible about herself. And we just began to have a conversation. We opened up the conversation about the damage that she was experiencing at being exposed to this family member. And she began to realize that she could actually do with a lot less time with that person. And she began to only see this person much more seldomly. And that everything began to change as soon as she began to do that and limit the amount of time that she was exposed to that really nasty, mean person. She starts to feel so much better about herself. When we create for ourselves our own Tevas Noach, our own ark, and here I don't only just mean our homes and in terms of spiritual insulation. I'm talking about our emotional safety. There's a lot out there in the world about sort of apologizing for people who are actually just rock bottom nasty and mean. And they know that, maybe they had a bad day, or they had a difficult childhood, or, all the other stuff. And of course, I'm all for understanding if people had a hard day or a difficult childhood. But what I'm not all for is thinking that that gives somebody permission to go and hurt other people. If we're being hurt by other people, then we could decide, and we could say, you know what, I'm really sorry that you're suffering, and it's not on my watch anymore. Like, I'm not a part of that anymore. Please, you take care of yourself. And we don't even have to say those words to them, but we can say to ourselves, it's not my job. In fact, a big, shout out to one of my clients this week, who she said that we all went through, Yontif was quite intense. And especially in Chutz La'aretz, where you had Shabbos Yontif, and 2 days Yontif. And such a lot was going on. Everybody was so busy, and we had the ups and downs, and then the hostages came home, like all kinds of like very intense things, and then there were these horrible accidents, different places. So a lot, everybody has whatever we've been going through. Everybody's going through many different things, and at a certain point, so she was in Chus Laretz, and she was taking care of a lot of family, and at a certain point, she had really done a lot. Okay, as we Jewish women tend to do over Yontif, a lot. And it was at the very end, okay? Might say Simchas Daira, might say the very, very end. And someone said to her that a certain family needed a lot of help. And she said, yeah, they might need a lot of help, but not from me. Like, it's not me. And I was so proud of her. She was so proud of herself. Yes, we have this voice inside that says, just push yourself a bit more, just do a little bit more, just be a little bit more. And we both knew the risk of what she was risking if she would do a little bit more. She was risking her equilibrium. She was risking being able to really stay in her zone of being able to be calm and controlled within herself. She didn't want to lose it. She didn't want to start yelling at somebody, which she knows if she gets to a certain point of overgiving and of tiredness, that's what's going to happen. And so she was able to really, really, really stay within what she understood. She'd been giving a lot. It wasn't she hadn't been giving, but that additional extra, she knew at that point it would knock her over. And so she stayed within her safe Tevas Noach, that she prepared for herself and created the safety within which she knows, okay, within this, I could be a better version of myself. And that's what Hashem wants. Hashem wants us to have good midos. So doing chesed, and then getting angry later, that doesn't work on our midos. Yes, we want to do chesed. We want to do chesed in a way that we don't resent it later. We don't feel like verschmattered. And we were all working so much. And taking care of ourselves is often last on the agenda. I just saw another friend today who is dealing with parents on one hand and taking care of children in intense situations on the other hand, and was feeling very, very squished. And like she's saying, I'm strong, I'm doing great. And at some point I said, you know what? You don't have to be that strong. Just make time for yourself. Okay? Take care of you. You are also a factor in this. And for the foreseeable future, she's going to be continuing to care for parents and also for children. And if we want something to be enduring, if we want to be able to continue doing something, it has to be sustainable. And it's not sustainable to consistently leave ourselves out of the equation. So what needs to be in our own tevas love? What needs to be in our own environment for us to function ideally? That's a question that we all have to ask for ourselves. No one else can give us that answer. And most of us don't have those people in our lives who are really going to come along and take on our case. Someone showed me a little snip, a little clip of a tiger who made the mistake of his life. This tiger attacked a baby elephant, and the baby elephant was crying away, woo, woo, like making all these sounds. And the tiger had attacked this baby elephant. All of a sudden, mommy elephant comes careering onto the scene, and boy, did she lay into that tiger. Okay, she picked him up and she threw him on the floor, and she picked him up again and she threw him somewhere else. And the tiger climbed up a tree. This mommy elephant pulled the tree out from its roots, dropped the tiger on the floor, and smashed the entire tree on top of the offending tiger. Now, most of us don't have a mommy elephant coming, fighting our fight for us if some kind of tiger attacks us. And I'm definitely not suggesting that we go throwing whole trees at people. Clearly, that I don't think anybody would think that that's really what I'm proposing over here. But we need to be our own mommy elephant. We need to take care of ourselves. That baby elephant was helpless and didn't really have the capacity to do that. And sometimes we feel a bit helps us in the face of all these big things that seem to be said, well, you should do this, you should do that, and maybe you should do this, maybe you should do that, and really, it would be so nice if you would do this. And what doesn't come up automatically inside ourselves is, and how am I going to manage doing all of that and stay regulated and stay my best version of myself, and be able to dive and be able to not be angry and not blame anybody and not be resentful. How can I show up for myself so powerfully that I can do chesed and I can do what I need to do, and I don't feel in any way resentful of anybody else, because I know how to say, till here is what I can do. Beyond that, I'm sure somebody else, Be'ez Hashem, will be able to take over. I'm not an apikoros. I don't believe that I'm the only person in the world who can do things. Baruch Hashem, there are many other people here, and Kadosh Baruch Hu has many. Hashem has many different emissaries and representatives who do his good work. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam shehakol nהיה b'dvaro. So let's all decide to make our own Tevas Noach, whatever it is that we need, and we get to build that Tevas Noach. In addition, I want to address something that Rabasha also brings down here. So he again, I always learn something new from Rabasha, and he said he brings down the Malbim. Okay, this is fascinating. That the people who lived in the generation of the flood, they lived a perfect life. They had been given such a perfect setup. They had, listen to this, rain only fell once in 40 years. And from that once in 40-year rainfall, they had enough to be able to reap bounty and crops that was enough to feed them all. They had tremendous amount of bounty. They had huge, beautiful crops that were coming up. The ground was blessed. The ground gave such beautiful produce. And from the goodness that they had, they were able to simply forget about the Kadosh Baruch Hu. They never needed to lift up their eyes and see. And this, the Malbim learns also from the fact that the sign that came after the flood was the rainbow. After the flood, the Malbim brings down, quoted by Rabasha over here, that before then, when this rain came once in 40 years, it came in such a way that the sky was so covered with clouds, it was so thick that no sun could penetrate it. So this was entirely new world order which took place after the flood. We know that there was entirely new world order. In fact, there are opinions that the dinosaurs existed before the flood, and they didn't exist after the flood. All kinds of different creatures. All the seasons did not exist. There was no winter, summer, spring, and autumn. We didn't have to have different kind, boots and scarves and summer clothing. We have what I always call to my children, Rav Onati. We had multi-season clothing. They could just wear the same kind of clothing all the time. They didn't have to constantly change their clothing. They had everything they needed. They had a constant flow of everything. They lived in what was basically a Gan Eden. Everything was constantly flourishing. And then, after the flood, there was an entirely new world order. And without having that ease, without having an easy life, all of a sudden, when the people were faced with the weight of their worries, where were things going to come from? How are we going to have? Where is it? All of a sudden, they discovered the Ribono Shel Olam. And so this great change between before the flood and after the flood is shown by the dove who was sent out and brought back towards evening time an olive branch. As she said, may my sustenance be bitter from the hands of a Kadosh Baruch Hu and not be sweet as honey in the hands of man. Rabash explains that before the flood, all of a person's income and sustenance was sweet as honey. It was easy. They had everything they needed. Everything grew in abundance, and they could just walk out and pick cherries and whatever they needed. Whatever they needed, they had an abundance of it. And the ease with which they had everything made it so easy to completely forget HaKadosh Baruch Hu. After the flood, all of a sudden, it wasn't so easy anymore. That curse became it really became operative after the flood, where they had to work so hard. And then, so again, before, he said, the Malbim says, before they could think, I did all of this. I don't need anybody else. Life is so good. I can rely on myself. I don't even have to think about a Kodesh Baruch Hu. And Hashem said, no, just Hashem said, so one second here. Kodesh Baruch Hu said, just as the Yonah, just as the dove brought light to the world, what does it mean? So the Yonah brought the olive branch, and the olive branch, when squeezed, creates olive oil, which was used in the Beis HaMikdash to light the menorah, which lit up the world. It is not only physical light, but the spiritual light. When the Yonah said, I want to have the bitterness of having to navigate this world, of living with the unknown, the uncertainty of this world, the travails of this world, the inclement weather of this world. I want to live with the bitterness, but the hand of a Kadosh Baruch Hu. How could it be bitter, the hands of Hashem? Meaning the involvement in this world, the need to have to engage in business, the need to have to engage in a livelihood, the need of having to check our food for bugs and go and schlep and do the shopping and figure out how to pay the bills and all the different things that we need to do. And not only that, but the tsaros, all of the pain, all of the agony, all of the anxiety, all of the tsar gidul banim, all of the pain in raising children, and all of the fear and the lack of security, meaning all of the troubles of this world. Since the Mabul, we have all of the troubles of this world. And the spiritual light only comes from the fact that we have a bitter physical existence. It's bitter. It's not sweet. It's not sweet as honey, but it's miyad Hashem. We have the bitterness of having to engage in this world. And it's not sweet. It's not fun. But it's only through that way can we actually find a Kadosh Baruch Hu. And I really want, there's only one really frequently asked question that I get all the time. And that is, isn't there some way that we can find Hashem without pain? And I get asked this over and over again in so many ways. And part of my answer is always that I never get a phone call from a woman or an email from a woman who says, Hinda, my life is so great. My life is so perfect. Help me find a Kadosh Baruch Hu. It's just not how it goes. And so after over 25 years of coaching, guiding, of being involved with women, I wish I could say that there was another way to find a Kadosh Baruch Hu without having some kind of bitterness in our lives. But it just doesn't seem to be like that. And unfortunately, but maybe fortunately for them in some way, the hostages who have come back, so many of them have found Hashem in such a deep way. In fact, a woman told me yesterday that she heard, and I don't remember who said this, but she said she heard one of the hostages saying that they're so grateful to be out, and yet he misses that closeness that he had with the Kadosh Baruch Hu in the tunnel. To say that he misses that, because if you don't have that same level of bitterness, you don't have that same kind of connection with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. It goes hand in hand. And so in the darkness, that's where we find Hashem. In the bitterness of the olive branch, that's where we find the Kadosh Baruch Hu. In the challenges that we have, and in the hardships, and in that which is left out of our lives, that the Kadosh Baruch Hu says, yes, you wanted this. And yes, I'm leaving it out for a good reason. Because in the gaping hole that I've created in your life for whatever it is that's missing. That's your window. That's your window to find me in that hole. And so that's one of the lessons that we can take from Parshas Noach, is that, yeah, they were given a chance to find a Kadosh Baruch Hu through his goodness, through his sweetness, through having everything good and everything that they needed being readily available and not having any challenges. And mankind could not live up to that situation. They had it in Gan Eden. It didn't last very long. And then they had a toned down version of Gan Eden in the generations until the flood. Again, they just couldn't live up to finding Kadosh Baruch Hu in that situation. And so we have inherited a world where the darkness is so available, where there's I'm sure that there isn't anybody who hasn't had some kind of, really dark, heavy kind of challenge and struggle, and has tried to find a Kadosh Baruch Hu through that struggle. And the only way to deepen our connection to Hashem is through that struggle. And that's what Emunah Pshuta is about. Emunah is about believing that this struggle and this hardship and this darkness and this challenge comes from Hashem. So you're asking, didn't that generation find Hashem too? No, that was Dor HaMabul. That was the generation who did evil in the eyes of Hashem. They were stealing, and they were fighting with each other, and they were ignoring Kadosh Baruch Hu, and they were not trying to find him. No, that wasn't the generation that tried to find Hashem at all. And that was why the Mabul came along. Hashem said, I need to push reset on creation. This is not working out. This is not how I want the creation to be. And Kadosh Baruch Hu, in his great chesed, showed us in the Torah. He taught us Parshas Noach. He said, you're asking the question, couldn't you find me from right type? Couldn't you find me with all the good and the sweetness? And so Hashem's answer to us is, no, you need to have changing seasons. You need to have the freezing cold, and you need to have the boiling hot, and you need to have the days where we have so many different kinds of. One second, I feel like they were so close to beginning that they would have been a high madrega. No, we wish they would have been, but no. In fact, we're taught that the generations from Adam to Noach were generations of hevel. They were generations of emptiness. There weren't tzaddikim there in those generations. They were unfortunately descending very, very deeply. Yeah, they were. They weren't doing what Hashem wanted. Emunah Pshuta means that we know that Hashem has left things out of our lives for a reason. And I had been going to say something, I think I just distracted myself out of what it was, but Be'ez Hashem. Tevas Noach. Teva, the purpose of Hashem showed us in the Torah that when we have everything too good, it's just too easy to forget HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And only through the challenges, only when we feel helpless in some way, we have to realize that we're actually helpless to change anything ourselves. It's not that Hashem gave us the means to influence. Hashem gave us the means to turn to Him. He gave us tefillah, and He gave us mitzvahs, and He gave us emunah and bitachon, all different ways that we can influence the outcome. But in our own hands, we cannot make situations change. And until we recognize that helplessness, not the helplessness of not being able to do, not to influence, but the physical helplessness that we have, that we cannot make something the way that we want it. And ultimately, all we can do is influence, but we cannot make a Kadosh Baruch Hu create a certain the outcome that we want. Unless we find ourselves in that place, we can't come to Hashem honestly. We're going to still have a fake version of ourselves that we can do things, that we can create outcomes. Because look, it's been so nice so far, so we think that we can continue. We can't. Nothing is in our hands. No outcome is in our hands. It's all in the Kadosh Baruch Hu's hands. And so Parshas Noach comes to teach us, Be'ez Hashem, that the light, the spiritual light, that comes out of the olive branch that the dove brought back is the spiritual light of saying, only through the bitterness of this world can I find a Kadosh Baruch Hu. And I prefer the bitterness of this world to be able to find a Kadosh Baruch Hu than the sweetness of having everything that I want and everything perfect. But all I have is relying on B'nai Adam, relying on people, relying on myself, relying on others, and without Hashem Chas Shalom in the picture. If anybody wants to unmute, speak, share, ask something, I'd love to hear from you. Please go ahead.
I tuned in just to hear you say this.
It's great to see you, Faye. It's great to see you.
I'm so happy I still got a glimpse of you. So, and the last line you said, love that. Love that.
So you'll listen into the recording and you'll hear
the recording, so I'll hear it all. Have a good Shabbos and a good Chaya.
Beautiful Shabbos. Wonderful to see you. Bye. Anybody else? Yeah. Hi. Great to see you. You're muted. Unmute.
Hi.
Hi. Hi.
I just wanted to thank you so much.
Good.
So good. It's amazing. And I'm working on something right now, and your class is being, and your words are being infused into the holy. It's holy work, and your holy words are being infused into it right now. So I just wanted you to know that. And it matches what you're wearing, so I think it's really related.
So you'll send me some pictures, okay?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Can't wait. Okay,
thanks so much. Thanks.
Okay, my pleasure. Okay, so one of you asked in Shidduchim, it's a really hard Parsha. Yeah. Oh my gosh, what a hard Parsha. So many older singles navigating the Shidduch scene. It is so painful. And again, when we think about children off the derech, okay, you got married, you had a child, so you might think you're having nachas, and then, okay, but then the child is challenging. And then you have parents who are married, but they don't have children, and they're going through the angst of waiting for a child. And then you have a single woman alone. She said, but I'm not even married. I didn't even get to start. And yes, it's so painful. And everybody has such a different challenge. Everybody, HaKadosh Baruch Hu has created for each one of us a different challenge, because if we all had the same challenges, we wouldn't even think it was a challenge anymore. Like, no one's walking around the world feeling bad that they don't have 5 arms. That why do they only have 5 arms? You know, everybody's got 5 and they've got 2. Okay, because no one's born with 5 arms. Everybody's only got 2 arms. So if everybody had the same challenge, we would say, well, okay, that's just life. That's the way that life is. But because Hashem has created so many varying ways to be in pain and to be different, so not only do we feel that we're in pain because we're missing something, but we feel also isolated. Like, people don't really understand me. No one knows what it's like to go through my particular life situation, whether it's being an older single or whether it's being a young couple or not such a young couple and not having children when the whole world is married and has children, apparently, or whether it could be a young widow or divorcee who's everybody else has a spouse and she doesn't know. People don't know how to talk to her about it or how to support her. Every single situation that we're in, the pain is real, and words of chizuk is that only through feeling that pain, only through feeling the challenge and how hard it is, can we really come close to a Kadosh Baruch Hu. We're in this world for a reason. We're not in this world to, decorate our rooms as much as we want to make a nice place for ourselves to live, but we're not in this world to, achieve a certain pay level, or to meet, to get a certain amount of followers. Like, that's not why we're in this world. Every single neshama is in this world to fulfill a specific reason why that neshama needed to come into this world. And the specifics of our life situation, exactly what we have and exactly what we don't have, that's what we're here to do it with. It doesn't mean that we're not going to achieve the goal that we want. It doesn't mean that it's not going to happen. Be'ez Hashem, you will find your Zivuk Hagon very, very, very soon. And you'll be able to post here next week that things have already changed. Be'ez Hashem. We hope. And if right now what we're in is something really painful, it's because only going through this particular tunnel that we're in right now, that's where we're going to be able to find Hashem and fix up the soul that we've been given in this world. We wouldn't want to leave this world and have to come back again and start all over again and not getting the tikkun that we came into this world to fulfill. At the end of the day, we want to fulfill the tikkun. And so Hashem is giving us the chance to fulfill the tikkun that we came into this world for. I hope that does make it in some way easier, but it's hard. It doesn't necessarily stop the pain. The pain is but that's what again, part of the answer of what I'm trying to say today is that the pain is part of the process. Unfortunately, when it hurts, that's why we look up to the sky. And the Yenuka, the holy Yenuka, says that looking up at the sky, when we fulfill the pasuk, Esa enai el harim, lift up your eyes to the mountains. He says the act of looking up to the sky, it actually fills us with holiness and emunah and bitachon. So when we're in pain and we look up to the sky and we look and say, Hashem, please help. The act of looking up actually into the sky it helps us to grow. So let's keep looking up. Let's keep looking towards the Kadosh Baruch Hu. Let's keep hoping to Kadosh Baruch Hu. As we said in Tehillim today, that Al tivtechu b'nedivim. Don't trust in even wealthy, generous people. It's not worth trusting in them. Trust only in a Kadosh Baruch Hu, and Be'ez Hashem. He's going to come through for us. He's going to give our souls everything that we need to fulfill the tikkun for which we came into this world, Be'ez Hashem. And hopefully, emunah bitachon can make it easier. Be'ez Hashem. Anybody wanted to add or ask, share anything? I'd love to hear from anybody else who wants to say something. Okay. Thank you, dear friends. Thank you for being here. Wishing everybody a beautiful, peace-filled, inspiring, and restful Shabbos. Thanks so much, everybody.